put on his glasses so he could read.
All
So
right.
he could see.
So I'll say good morning. Gonna have our safety meeting this morning since there's so many of us here. Per my texts, we have Sarah's not gonna be in today. I guess she's gonna have to move. She's got some personal things that she has to do now. Nick said that he's staying home because of Avery. Ryan and Mike are gonna be late, and Jesse called out as well. His daughter's being sick. So
Is there a lot of jobs today?
we have work, but we're gonna be switching
Swamp.
some things around.
Okay.
So I just had I was going through some pictures of some handyman type of work, and I just want to show you guys a couple of them real quick, just to kind of lighten the mood, starting our week Monday. So we can see how the sink is installed right on top of the toilet. Pretty cool, all right?
I've never seen it done like that too.
Well,
Oh my
if,
God.
If your door doesn't fit, just cut the door. Put the toilet in a small space. Small
That's
closet.
funny.
And I don't know how you're gonna take a shower sitting down in the tub. It's another one.
I cannot believe somebody would do that though.
And this is how they put their vent. Now this vent's supposed to go outside from the microwave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just basically vented it right back into the same house.
Jeez.
Here's another fix. Put the toilet in the corner and the wall's in the way, so we'll just hack the wall up a little bit. And that's our drain
Yeah.
repair. A little bit of duct tape. They say duct tape will do about fix anything, right? And that's how we put our clean out in. We put our drain in sideways and just kind of notch the wall. And this guy decided to put his AC up on some bricks, get it off the ground. Missed the run out of bricks. And that was a little scary too. So, just, if you have a leak or your machine's icing up, just put jury rig here. Those are the ones, I thought that was kind of funny, some of them anyway.
Yeah, they're definitely.
But for the safety meeting, let me get back into that really quick. Well, this is actually more, instead of safety, this is really a little video on, mainly for you two guys in particular, because you guys are doing more of the apprentice stuff for water heaters. It gives you some information, kind of shows you some things to look, why we change anode rods out when you're explaining to a customer, and
Going rogue on you today.
Why
We're
they
back
get
at
flushed.
More Supply, where we cut open these water heater tanks a few weeks ago to see the inside. Now, in today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive, a closer look, and see what lessons we can learn. Alright guys, so we're back at the water heater supplier, and we cut these open a couple weeks ago, but you know, after we did that, I've had a chance to kind of mull over the results and think about what we can learn from these. So let's actually take a closer look at all four of these tanks and see what lessons we can learn. So let's start with the first one. This is the one that was the thumbnail on the other one where I said it was totally gross on the inside. This is the 2000 model. This is an electric one, and you can see the electric coils right here. But look at the amount of scale in the bottom of this thing.
California
Absolutely
water heater.
gross. Now, of course, this isn't harmful to our health. It's not really gross in that we're going to be harmed by drinking water maybe that came out of this. But think about how terribly inefficient this was. There was probably more scale even than this in here. And look at these anode rods here. They were probably totally covered in scale. How efficient do you think this tank was? I bet this thing probably used twice as much electricity as when it was brand new and clean in this thing. Gosh, look at it, it's getting all over me. The other interesting thing about this one is now you can see what kind of insulation is being used on the tank. You've got a steel tank on the inside, steel tank on the outside. It looks like it's maybe, I don't know, somewhere between an 1/8 and a 16th thick here. And then there's a spray foam insulation. And the tank, you'll also notice, has a lot of this rusty color on the bottom. And in fact, before I stood it up, I saw some parts on this metal tank that looked pretty rusty. Now what's preventing that rust on the inside of a tank? It's this right here. This is the anode rod, and it looks to me like this might have been the original rod. We've got the bare wire showing, and a new rod is going to look like this over here. Here's a brand new rod. So it went from this, a brand new rod, this happens to be aluminum, to this over the course of time. And my guess is this tank was never maintained. Obviously it was never flushed, and that anode rod never came out. Now it did last a long time, 17 years. Typically you think of a lifespan for a water heater tank is about 15 years. So this one fit right in that. But I think had this tank been flushed, had this been used in a softened, water softened system, boy, we could have gotten maybe more life out of it. And of course it would have worked way more efficiently.
All right, so I just wanted to kind of stop there on this one because all of that, all the sediment that's in the bottom of that water heater, for you guys who don't know, you know, you're doing HVAC mostly, and you guys are getting into plumbing. That's why you want to basically flush your water heater out and get that sediment out, because as that sediment continues to, you know, get more and more in a water heater, you're going to have a lot less efficiency, because now there's less water in there, first of all, because you have all that sediment, right? The anode rod is being eaten away. That's also why we change out anode rods, and he'll show you more about that in a second. There's different kinds, but basically, you know, that's why it's important. If you want your water heater to last what it was intended to, and every state is different, so depends on the hardness of your water and everything else on how fast, you know, this will happen. But if you're not maintaining them, it'll happen a lot faster, especially in California where we have really, really hard water. So just kind of a little bit of a...
Okay, next tank.
lesson
We're
there.
moving actually from the oldest to the newest. Now this model is a 2016, so this one's only 2 years old. I have no idea why this one got replaced. If you look on the inside of this tank, the metal looks like it's in fantastic condition. I mean, it looks like it's in real good shape. And in fact, I wonder what this got coated with. It looks to me like it's almost a baked on finish on top of this metal. So the manufacturer did a real nice job preventing rust. Now we did have a little bit of scale in the bottom of this tank if you saw the other video. Most of it's gone now. I think it may have gotten rolled over, but very little scale. If this one would have been flushed, I think we would have been in good shape. But the anode rod, look at this. See if you can zoom in here. I'm going to use my flashlight. And where the anode rod screws in on the top, let's see if you can focus in on that. The anode rod down here looks good, but at the top, where it connects, it looks like it would actually possibly fall off. Look at that. It's just hanging on with just a little bit. I don't know. I think that this anode rod probably needs to get replaced on a water heater tank about every probably 5 to 7 years. If your tank at your house is 7 years old or so.
Right, so I listened to that part too, and I thought, that sounds like that's in a different state where they don't have the aggressive water that we have. I would say a water heater anode rod, and tell me what you think, Kevin. I would say every probably 2 to 3 years would be a good idea, depending on the amount of sediment that comes out, right?
Yeah, probably every 2 to 3 years. And the manufacturer, by the way, in the event you have softened water, recommends once a year. Because the anode rod will deteriorate a lot faster with soft water. Even though soft water is better for the water heater, it destroys those anode rods. And then that's the only thing really, because there's salt in the water typically, you know, and the reaction with steel. Not only that, soft water, and then you're putting it in a steel tank, regardless of whether it's potassium or not. The minute that it has a fiberglass lining, it has a coating in it. It's not just steel. So there's a lining inside of that water heater, and that's a little bit of what he was just talking about. Oh, it looks like there's a lining. There is a lining, and it's kind of like a fiberglass, if you will, bed, and that fractures over expansion and contraction as the water heater heats and cools and heats and cools. You start to get all like a shattered windshield look. And then the water will start to permeate through that lining and start to hit the tank. Once that happens, that's when the tank starts to deteriorate. So if you can if you can make the water less aggressive by changing the anode rod, it will protect that and slow that process down. The process is inevitable. but it slows it down significantly. So you can literally get 20 years out of a water heater if you.
No, I would replace the rod.
How much
Put a
do
new rod in there.
anno rods cost
One
usually?
problem,
Well,
Run.
we charge, I think, 200 and something.
250.
250 something. It's
253.
It's actually kind of cheap in the industry. I know guys that are charging like 350.
That's the part and the installation, of course. And there's two different kinds that we use, which you're gonna see a different kind. You saw the one that he had, the real long that he's holding right now. But you'll see another one it's a segmented piece, because a lot of times water heaters, and now in particular, that in the old days, they used to have water heaters on the ground. Now you have to have them 18 inches off the ground on a stand, unless it's, well, I guess there are some exceptions to that depending on if it's outside and
Where they're
in a
at,
cabinet, right?
location wise.
Yeah, if it's outside in one of those cabinets, you can have it on the ground, on a slab, but if not, it's gotta be up 18 inches up. So now when you have your water heater up that high, if you see how long that outer rod is, he'll show you in a second, you try to pull it up, now you're hitting the ceiling, you can't get it up without bending it, and trying to pull it out this way. But they have something now that's segmented, one they've had for several years that is for that, and it's actually made out of magnesium, so it's a better.
though, with replacing rods, these just screw in on the top. In fact, you'll see a bolt head like this on the top of your water heater. Is you got to pull that thing all the way out and look at the head height you would need on top of your water
So if
heater.
that's on an
Your water
18-inch
heater's in the
stand,
closet,
you're not gonna get that
there's
out
no way you're going
unless
to
you're
get that
bending
kind
it.
of head height. So you want to actually use one of these. It looks like a set of nunchucks. But what you've got here is one that's segmented, so you could drop it in segments and stand that up. Now this one too is, instead of aluminum, I believe this is magnesium, and they call these a flexible anode. I'll put a link to two of these in the description so you know what I'm talking about. My understanding is that these will actually last longer and do a better job as well.
But they're
a
more
little bit
expensive.
more expensive in the
Oh, yeah.
flexible variety. The other thing that was interesting about this tank
That's the catch-22.
was look at the wall thickness here. This wall thickness is quite a bit less thick than the last tank. Let's see if we can actually measure it. It's just shy of 1.5 inches. It's probably 1.25 inches maybe in insulation thickness. Now I looked up the specs on this. This one's pretty new. This is a 0.56 EF rating. And if you can scroll around, look at the energy guide in the back here. I know it's going to be a little hard to see, but check out the energy guide here. The most interesting thing, forget the numbers, this is a propane tank. I'm not necessarily interested in the exact numbers of how much it costs per year, but the energy guides do have a scale from least amount of energy used to most amount, and this tank falls in the upper half. I have a feeling that that's a combination of insulation and burner efficiency. Now, keep that in mind. We're going to look at another tank in a second here. Let's go to the next tank, which is also a gas tank. This one happens to be natural gas, not propane. But look at this immediate difference we're seeing in wall thickness. The other one, 1.25 inches. This one's 2.5. So double the thickness of the last tank. Now I looked up the EF rating on this one. This is a much older tank. This is a 2000 model year, so quite a bit older than that one. But this EF rating is a 0.65. So, 10% more efficient. I have a feeling it's that insulation that's making a better efficiency rating. Now the scale is different. Come on over here and check out the scale, because these scales are going to change, and it's based on water heaters of its time. But among water heaters sold in its day, look where that arrow is. It's in the first third of using least energy. I have a feeling that that's vital when you're buying a water heater. Get one that's in the first third of the efficiency, because you're going to get this thicker wall. And as far as I could tell, looking at the specs on the manufacturer's pages, none of them showed the insulation value or thickness or any of that. And it's not like you can cut your water heater open at the store before you buy it. So that's a pretty interesting result.
So the point that I wanted to kind of make on this is, a lot of times when you're selling water heaters and you're competing with somebody else, and you don't really, a lot of people don't show the value of what they're doing. So if you're getting a water heater that's a higher efficiency and it's on that lower end, that's usually worth more money to somebody, and then you can explain that to them. So most of the water heaters we install should be high efficiency water heaters. You can go to Home Depot and you can look at water heaters at Home Depot, and you can see some that are over that half mark, and then you can see some that are down, maybe they're $100 more, but they're a higher efficiency water heater. The same thing goes when you happen to go to Ferguson, call Ferguson up or whatever, and say, hey, I'm getting, what kind of energy efficiency rating do I have? I want a high efficiency water heater, because they'll give you more than one price if you ask them specifically for high efficiency. So when you're charging more to a customer, it's the same thing as the warranty. You can extend the warranty by buying a sticker, and you fill out a little form and you send that in, and the customer gets the high efficiency little booklet that goes with it, or the not the high efficiency, the extended warranty on it. It costs about $175 for going from 6 years to 10 years. But it's really important to know what if you're going to be selling to a customer high efficiency, know what your high efficiency, at least where you're at on
Is
the
there any
scale.
cheaper places than Ferguson to buy your water heater?
You can go to Home Depot and buy them cheaper, but they're not going to be.
It's efficient?
They're not necessarily. You can get them buy high efficiency one at Home Depot. I mean, they're going to be more expensive. But when you go and you look at someone that says, "Oh, I saw a water heater at Home Depot for $380," well, yeah, you did, but
How efficient is it?
how efficient is it? Number one, and number two is if someone were to buy something from Home Depot that we didn't purchase ourselves, we don't warranty that part. We'll warranty our installation only, but not the part.
The other interesting thing about this one, 2 years old, look at the scale on this one. We had some scale on the walls on this one, if you saw the other video when we first cut it open. And in fact, there's some here on the flue. You can see it right here. I'm dulling my knife as I do this, but I just wanted to show you how thick it was. I think that if we were to descale this once a year, run a hose to it once a year, really scale it down, and then also check out the anode rod on this one. Still kicking, although pretty corroded. And again, this one's pretty old. Now, it's hard to tell if this is the original anode rod or replacement, but my guess is this is probably the original based on this tank having a fair amount of scale on it. Replace that anode rod maybe 5 to 7 years. Flush that tank once a year. I think you're going to get a lot more life than the kind of 15-year standard out there. Okay, last tank let's look at. Electric is the last model. And again, look at the thickness on the insulation. Let's check this one out here. We've got inch and 3/4, something like that. And not that much scale on this one. Both the burner elements are in good shape. Just a little bit of scale on the bottom. There's no rust in the tank, which is interesting. The sacrificial anode rod has been pretty degraded, but it's doing its job. And this one is a 2005? Yeah, 2005 electric. This is a 13-year-old tank, pretty old tank. I think that if this anode rod was replaced, again, every 7 years or so, 5 to 7 years, you might be able to get over 20 years from a tank like this, maybe even as much as 30 years. I'm not entirely certain why these are replaced. Again, this is just the boneyard. I'm here at Moore Supply where I buy my water heaters. And it was kind of them to let me cut these open in a dramatic form. But here's the takeaways. Replace your anode rod, flush your tank, look at those EF ratings and get one that's got a higher EF rating. Most of these kind of standard tanks are going to be somewhere between 0.5 some to maybe as much as 0.7, and the higher rating the better. Of course, I'm a big fan of the really high efficiency units, and stay tuned for some future videos on them.
All right, so again, for California, every 2 to 3 years is a good time for anode rods because of the aggressive water we have, and flushes every year is what's recommended to keep all that stuff out. Because you saw that first water heater that almost half the water heater was completely full of sediment because they never did it. So, and the high efficiency is they're only going to be high efficiency and last the amount of time that the manufacturer expects them, depending on number one where they're at. We're in California, high aggressive water, and like Kevin said, it depends on if they're using water softener with salt or whatever the case is. But changing the anode rod every 2 to 3 years, flushing the water heater every year, that's going to make it last. And the high efficiency rating is another important part to know, especially when you're trying to compete with somebody else and they come in lowball. There's a company out there and they're just called, that's all they do is water heaters. I think they're called something water heaters. I mean, that's it. But they install water heaters all day long and they have the lowest, cheapest things that you can get, like bottom of the line, bottom end. But they're very low, or they're very low efficiency too. And then they try to bump you up by just increasing the efficiency because that makes a lot of difference for a lot of people. So just wanted you guys to know that. All right, and then the other thing about water heaters, electric water heaters in particular, you make sure that you do what?
Turn it
Before,
off.
before you flush a electric water heater, turn it off, and why is that? What are you gonna do if you don't?
Burn out the elements.
Exactly. The elements will get burnt out if you leave them on, and now you won't be able to heat up the water. So turn them off. Now on same thing on, you know, I guess different people have said different things. I've heard different things about like gas water heaters. Do you turn off a gas water heater? Do you turn off the pilot light and do all of that when you flush a water heater? I've heard different things, and Kevin may have his own opinion on it. But one thing is, someone said that if you turn off and you know, you have hot water coming out as you're flushing it, and you turn off the gas, and then you put cold water in directly as you're flushing it out, then you have that heat and expansion from hot water coming out, cold water coming in. You can cause things inside the water heater to wear out prematurely, I guess, because of the expansion.
Yeah, you're gonna have a greater degree of thermal expansion.
Right.
It's like taking a hot plate and putting it under
Ice
cold-
water.
Cold water, it can crack. I've seen that happen plenty of times. So it's that reaction, you know, to the severe change in temperature. So it you know, it's best to, in my opinion, throw it into vacation mode, or just turn it to pilot. Vacation mode's easier. Just remember to turn it back up, because somebody's gonna get a cold shower and they're gonna be pissed at you. So,
And we'll be going back.
yeah, and you'll be going back. But you know, there's a concern there that, yeah, when you go to put water back in, you're not putting in cold water, you're putting in, you know, lukewarm water, 60, 70 degrees, so it's not gonna be as significant. But in a tank will, by the time you're done doing your job, if you're doing it properly, that tank will have time to have cooled off. But definitely do not leave that burner on. You don't want to dry fire a water heater ever, regardless of whether it's electric or gas.
Well, and another thing, and I'm gonna throw this out at, and Kevin may agree or disagree, but one of the things that my former partner did when we had our plumbing company, anytime we installed a water heater and anytime that we would go and do a water heater flush, he would take the hose bib drain off of the water heater and put a full port ball valve, quarter turn ball valve on there, so that you could get more of the sediment out. That was his way of thinking, because he always wanted to make it easy to drain the next time, because when you have the smaller port ones that come with it, I mean, they're like a little hose bib. I mean, it just can drip out of there, especially if you get a little sediment in front of it. So that's something that he did that I thought was a pretty good idea, but I don't know if Kevin, if you've ever done that or thought of
Yeah, it's we have those hose bibs. It's actually part of our truck stock, or was, and those hose bibs have caps on them. And they're not really hose bibs. What they are is ball valve type hose bibs.
Boiler drain valves?
Huh?
They're boiler drain valves?
Yeah, they're full port, and then they have a chain with a cap, so that, you know, in the event there's a small leak or something, or somebody happens to bump into that ball valve, they're not gonna get scalded. But the idea that they're full port, because, you know, these water heaters drain very poorly, and that's probably the cheapest part of the water heater, is that flush valve. So I like to upgrade them. You know, it's something you could do at, you know, at the installation of a water heater. Certainly it's an add-on that you can, you know, it's for cheap. If they're what, 10, 15 bucks, you could probably get an extra 60, 100 bucks on your water heater easily for that. You know, every little bit helps, or at least justify the cost of what we're doing. But in the end, the effect of that draining that water heater is gonna be so much better. It's just gonna, you know, you're gonna get that sediment out, the majority of it. Whereas with these hose bibs, yeah, you know, it's touch and go, and they don't last long. If you ever come up against one that's plastic, Exercise extreme caution with the homeowner. That water heater actually should be replaced anyway, but it's a tour of duty to get the water out of that water heater. And even if you're replacing that water heater, it could be, I've had them literally snap off in my hand, and all of a sudden there's 50 gallons of water on the floor.
Yeah, that happened in my own garage.
Yeah.
Ryan was there to help replace that water heater. That's
So-
why we replaced it.
So let's throw this at everybody. I mean, to me, most of the time when we sell a water heater, we're always gonna add water heater flushes. I mean, we have a water heater flush, especially if they have an HPC, we're gonna be going out there and doing regular water heater flushes. To me, it makes a lot more sense to put a full port on there, and charge the customer for it, obviously. I'm sure it's in our book, and if it's not, we can, it's very easy, if we know what the part is, we can kind of do our calculator. It's gonna take us 5 minutes to take it off and put another one on. Basically, you just unscrew it, put it on before you even fill the water heater back up, and now you're gonna have a full port. So, what he would do on the old ones, or what he would basically, drain it down to where it wasn't draining anymore. Then he'd put the full port on there, fill a little more water back up, and you'd be amazed how much stuff would come out just with that full port compared to what he had before, because a lot of it was just prevented from coming out because of the small size of the hose bib that they put on it. So it's just one of those things that, if you really want to take care of your water heater, hey, it's an extra $100, $80, $100, whatever it is. But it's going to make sure that your water heater does a much better job of flushing, because the manufacturer, unfortunately, everyone that I've seen just about, I don't think I've seen a water heater made that comes with a full port, but, and I don't know why. Like Kevin said, it's the cheapest part of the water heater. But yeah, you can flush it, but you're not going to get, if you guys saw the water heater pictures that were on here, especially that first one, how much stuff was in there, there's just no way, even if you flush it, there's no way all that's coming out. It was so thick and, so full of stuff that you need a full port. So that's just a suggestion that I wanted to add. Anything else you have, Kevin?
Yeah, just real quickly, I was thinking about it over the weekend. It doesn't have to happen today, but we could do it in tomorrow's class. Is that I want to be sure that we go through on Service Titan and show everybody how to enter model numbers, serial numbers, filter sizes. If they have filtration, what type and where. In other words, if they have RO systems, those cartridges need to be replaced, right? If they have a air scrubber, those need to be replaced. So when we're looking for calls, we can easily go down to, if we do this right, when we're doing our inspections and if you're doing a plumbing inspection, you could do the HVAC as well, or at least you could capture the furnace and the condenser. Sometimes the furnace, unless you're not, it's in the attic, but even then you could ask the homeowner and you can go up there and find work easily. Just take pictures and send them to Mike or me, or Ryan, right? And how simple is that? I don't know shit about HVAC. Okay, I'll take a picture of it and send it to somebody who does. Tell me what you think of this. And pictures are as well very, very good to have in our file. And what I'm getting to is that oftentimes, I'm going on tune-ups, and I've been on, we've been tuning up this customer's furnace for probably 10 years, right? But I have no idea what the model number is. I have no idea what size the filter is. It's like, gosh, I hope I have that one on my truck. It could be a specialty filter. There's all this information, and that goes into the equipment section of Service Titan. So I think we need to get into the habit of doing that when you're on that job, and it's very from when you're dispatched to the job. I noticed it the other day. It's very simple to get into that equipment section and add that information in. So maybe we could do a few examples of that maybe tomorrow, or
Okay.
looks like we're a little crowded today anyway. So.
Yeah, I did do, my last class last week, I did a class on showing them how to take the pictures and how important it was and why it was important. And I also did, I showed them, of just putting the notes in there of what happened. And it was in a particular job, but I didn't go over that sheet, which I can do that on Wednesday's class. But I did show them how important it was and why. And it was mainly because of that job that Joweed had gone out to, and the customer saying that we sold the A.O. Smith water heater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had a picture of it, and luckily the previous tech that had gone out there in 2016 put notes and said, look, this water heater's been here for this amount of time, and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it had a picture of it, so we can see the year of the water heater when it was, the whole thing. So it really kind of saved us from having that in there. And then I sat here and put notes in the system in addition to showing, we need to have pictures of whatever we put back in there. So I haven't looked it up yet to see on what pictures he took since he went in and they put a water heater in, but I'm hoping that was done on, I believe, Friday.
Yeah, and when you're going on these jobs, oh man, it's awesome having all this history. Take a few minutes, pull over before you get to the job. I hate to just show up to a job and sit in the car for 10 minutes reading the history, because customers like tapping their feet, wondering what the hell's this guy doing, So before you get to the house, read the history. And then when you get there, because the customer might throw you a curveball and you're gonna be prepared. Either way, there could be previous estimates and all that stuff every piece of information is critical when you're on a job, and getting to know that customer and thanking them, by the way, for all the repeat business. Hey, I noticed, I was reading your file today, and I noticed that you've been a customer since such and such, and you've done a lot of work with our company. I just want to say I appreciate that. How many times do we say thank you to the customer before, for that, so those things, people like being appreciated. Okay, that's human nature. I know I don't do it enough myself, but it's easy and it's free, to say thank you.
So even after that meeting, I just went through, this is the job we ended up getting out of it. She gave us a score of 10 on here, a survey. So she liked everything we did on that. But all the pictures that are in there are the old pictures. There's nothing of the new water heater we just installed after I just had that meeting. So so now I'll have a conversation with him, because that's exactly what I said that needed to be done and why. I want a picture of the label on it. If we extend the warranty, I want a picture of that on there. The more pictures, the more notes you have on there, the better.
Not to mention, we know before the inspector goes out whether or not the job is done to code.
Right.
So if we go out before the inspector and make the corrections, it's gonna look better. Hey, manager was looking at the way that this thing was installed as part of our system, and we noticed that, so-and-so forgot to do such and such, I hate to inconvenience you to come back out again, but I just don't want the inspector to have to come out twice. Is there a convenient time for us to come and make this correction? That's so much better than the inspector going out, oh, these guys are idiots, they didn't do that, right?
Yeah, and it could be anything from the TMP not being put to where it's supposed to go. They're supposed to go outside unless they have one of those safety.
You can't drain them into the pan.
Yeah.
Nope, they want their own drain.
So anyway, so I'll have a conversation with him on that, but I will do that on the next meeting. I'll put something together so that.
So point is, we pay a shit ton of money for this service. That's why I got Service Titan, and it is expensive, really, really expensive. It's the Cadillac, right? But what good is it if you don't use it, So we really need to become, like the ninjas of Service Titan. I mean, because that's really gonna up our game big time. Really gonna up our game.
Yeah.
So I know I was lazy at first with that stuff, and I just didn't even want to deal with it. But now I'm getting really good at it, especially writing estimates and setting appointments and rescheduling things, and it's kind of fun to learn how to do it right. So yeah.
I guess let's get going. There's not a lot of us, so we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.